Yeah, what I usually have done the last couple of years is, before we take some questions, just I've usually talked about some different aspects of scouting, some things we do, maybe the calendar. What I'd like to do this time is just talk about the college scouts a little bit and kind of recognize them for what they do, which I should have done years ago. But these guys, they put long hours in, a lot of travel, school to school, spend a lot of time away from home. They're working on the college draft 365 days a year, and their opinions and info is what drives us, and we need that. And they do a great job with that. They don't receive enough recognition because people like me don't talk about them enough. So I'm going to go through each one of the guys, and part of it is they don't seek the attention either, which is why you appreciate them even more. So I'm just going to go through each guy and what area they have, and then I'll open up the questions. But I'll go geographically east to west, easiest for me. But in the Northeast, we have Pat Ryan, and Pat started as a young scout with us. He started as an intern, actually. He played football at Georgetown, so we know he's smarter than the rest of us in the room. But he's a really good young scout. He has a really bright future in this league. He's doing a great job with us. In the kind of the Mid-Atlantic with the old ACC area is James McPherson. James was a quarterback at Wake Forest, and we had him in training camp when I was with the Colts as a quarterback. He didn't make our team coming out of camp. He ended up going to the Arena League, played in the Arena League for a little bit, got into coaching, coached for a while, and then he got into scouting, and we hired him here, and he's done a great job. He's got great work ethic. He's a bulldog on the road for us. You can see the game as a coach, as a player, as a scout. He does a really nice job for us. In the Southeast, in the SEC, which is obviously a very important area, is Donovan Beidelshee. And Donovan, he played at Heidelberg College, which is a small school in Ohio, in the Ohio Athletic Conference, which is the SEC of Division III football, for those of you that may get that. So, and he coached as well a little bit when he was done playing, and he's been scouting for a long time. He's with the Browns for a while with Phil Savage, who he's learned the right way. And like I said, he's in a very important area for us and does a really, really nice job. In the Midwest, in the Big Ten, is Justin Sheridan. Justin played at Western Maryland, and he also worked at Northwestern in football operations for a good amount of years. And he's scouted with the Buccaneers for a long time in the same area in that Midwest Big Ten. He works that area for us, and he knows that area. He knows those coaches and players like no one else, and he's been in that Big Ten region for a long time. He's very well respected there. Does a great job. Moving west, in the Great Plains Big 12 area is Tom McConaughey. Tom's been with the Chargers way before me, probably over 20 years. He was here when Bobby Beathard was the GM, so that's a good scouting tree right there. And Tom has a long career in football. He played in the USFL, played in the NFL. He's coached in high school. I think he was a head high school coach at one point, coached in college, and scouted for a really long time. So he's got a great football background. On the West Coast and Pac-12 area is Chris Hobbs. Chris has been with the Chargers for a long time, and he worked his way up the ladder from intern to area scout right now, and he does a really nice job. He has great people skills, gets great information for us, really hard worker for us on the West Coast. And also in the West is Travis Lash. Travis is from San Diego, and another guy who started off at the bottom, came in as an intern and worked in the office, and he worked in pro scouting and college scouting, and now he's on the road for us during college scouting, and does a great job, really dedicated to it. Like I said, he's worn a lot of different hats in our organization. He does a really nice job for us on the road scouting now. Our national scout is Randy Mueller, and Randy will go all over the country, east to west, looking at the top players. And some of you may recognize his name. He was a GM with the Saints and the Dolphins. He's been an executive of the year at one point. He was a college quarterback when he was in college, and then he worked for the Seahawks for a long time in the 80s and 90s when they had a lot of talent there. So he knows it when he sees it, and his experience is invaluable to us. Our college director is Kevin Kelly, and Kevin was the linebacker coach at John Carroll when I was playing there, and Kevin also played linebacker at Indiana when he was in college. And he was a head high school coach in Chicago at St. Viator, which is a really real powerhouse in the Chicago Catholic League. But he's a head high school coach there. Also did some college coaching, and he scouted for over 15 years. He was a scout with us with the Colts for a long time, and he does a great job. He kind of manages that whole scouting staff, and also has to be on the road scouting players, but he works with that whole staff, and he just has great leadership for us in that department. And then lastly but not least is Tyler Lyon. Tyler is our college scouting coordinator, and he keeps everything together for us. So Tyler was a really good high school quarterback, I think, in the Orange County area when he was in high school, and ended up going to Arizona. He's got an economics degree and a law degree, so we really should have talked him out of working in football, but he just loves it so much. He's one of us. But he's so organized and detailed, and he really works with myself and JoJo Wooden every day, obviously Kevin Kelly every day, and then all the scouts, and he keeps everything organized for us. And it's such a critical job for us. There's obviously so many players we have to scout and know, but there's a lot of moving parts in the whole calendar, the whole process. So he does a great job with that. So that's kind of that whole group, and those guys that you can't have a good draft without them. But they don't get the recognition, but they also don't seek it. But I just want to make sure I mention those guys. So with that, I'll just open up to questions.
Tom, how important is it for you guys to draft a quarterback with Phillip Rivers entering his 15th year and getting up there in age?
I mean, obviously, we're going to get that question a lot until we actually do draft a quarterback. The great thing right now is we're very happy with Phillip. I mean, he's our quarterback, hands down, rest assured, and for this year and hopefully beyond. But we always have to have an eye in the future. That's part of our job. So, but we've got a lot of other areas of our football team we'd like to add to too. So that's all part of the puzzle.
What do you think of this quarterback class compared to recent years?
I'm so focused on this year's class. It's hard for me to compare. But I will say it's a deep class, not only in the first round but some other rounds. So, and we've seen that the last couple of years that the quarterback classes the last couple of years have been pretty good, and guys are coming into the league and playing a little bit quicker than they used to. So, but I'd have a hard time comparing back right now. My mind's kind of all focused on this year's class.
Tom, you talked a lot about your scouts. How many prospects do you guys evaluate in this process, like ballpark number?
I think they probably start off with probably over 3,000, and then you kind of whittle that down. But I know we probably have well over 1,500 prior reports on different players, and you have multiple reports on players anyway. So, I mean, they start, and actually some of the guys have started probably right now for next year's class if they got some time, and it's just narrowing that process down.
How different is it too when, you picked in the top 10 in the last 2 years and have been able, obviously when you pick 3, the scenarios are you kind of knew what was ahead of you.
Right.
Last year you probably had a better idea. What's it like being kind of in the middle of a draft, and how does that change kind of the way you prepare?
It does a little bit. Obviously, the higher you are, you can make better assumptions of who's going to be there. We're in that 17, 18, 19 area. I mean, typically you have about between, on a given year, 18 to 20 first-round rated players, give or take a couple. So we'll still, if we don't trade out, we'll still get someone that we feel like is a first-round player on our board. But there's just more scenarios you have to go through to try and work through the process of knowing what you'll do depending on what happens in front of you. That just takes a lot of preparation.
When you say first-round player, too, and there's only 20 of them, what are the expectations for that kind of first-round grade? What are you supposed to produce the first-round?
It's not what you produce, but it's just players that we have rated as first-round talents. I mean, I don't think anybody ever – I've never been on a team that had 32 rated players in the first round. It usually doesn't work like that. So, but it's players that you feel like have the talent to go in the first round. Like I said, it varies from year to year, just like different positions vary year to year. Usually the average is right about 18. I see that's probably right about where we are right now.
You guys signed Casey to a new contract. Melvin's up for a deal after the season. Are you guys going to exercise his 5th year, or are you guys going to try and work out a deal?
I think the plan is to exercise the option, but right now we're just focused on the draft.
Did Tyrell sign his tender?
Yes, he signed that this morning.
You talked last year about weighing best player available versus need. You said you'll always take the best player available. Does that philosophy change all the higher you are in the draft?
It doesn't really change. I mean, the best case scenario is the need line, the talent line both cross, and it works out like that, but it doesn't always do that. So you're looking for best player available. We all say it. But the board kind of dictates where you go with it. But there aren't very many scenarios where you would drop down, say if a player rated up high, you would drop down because, hey, we need this need here. Because I'm telling you, like our needs change quickly and often. And sometimes you didn't anticipate a need changing. So it's hard to go into a draft saying, hey, like we have to address these 3 or 4 needs because those needs may be different in August and may be different in October. So, and we also have to draft thinking not just 2018. We have to draft thinking down the road as well.
What do you think? Is there a pathway to getting better against the run in the draft that you've seen with the prospects available this year?
A pathway for getting better against the run in the draft?
Are there guys that you could take that would be like this one?
I don't know if one player is going to do that. I just don't think so. I think it's 11-man effort is what it is up front. I mean, on your whole defense. So no, one player is not going to come in and make a huge difference. I know when Cleveland took Danny Shelton, he came in his rookie year, I don't think their run defense changed a whole lot. Last year was pretty good after 3 or 4 years in it, and Greg Williams as a defensive coordinator. So it's hard to say one player is going to come in and just fix it. We know we have some issues there to work on. It's something where there's a lot of things we're working on in the offseason. I wouldn't say we're so focused on the run game that that's the end-all, be-all. I don't think that's it. But a lot of it comes from coaching and development and everybody else. And, if whoever we bring in any round, if they can help in the run defense, that's great too.
You've traded up a couple times since you've been here. What goes into making that move instead of standing pat and seeing if the guy falls to you?
You do your work in the weeks prior, just trying to determine different scenarios of what could happen and what you'd have to do. A lot of it may depend on who you have left on the board. If you feel like players are going off the board, and if you stay there, that you're not going to get a player that you really want, and there's no guarantee you can ever trade back and trade out. But a lot of it's just dictated on the board of where players are and what people do in front of you. But that's what we do. Certainly last week a lot, and even this week a little bit too. We'll go through different scenarios of where guys will go and what would we do, because draft day you can't have those discussions. I mean, it's hard enough when you're making decisions with the clock ticking down in front of you, but you can't have those long discussions at that point. You have to have that decided. So, there'll be certain trigger points in our round that, depending on who's there, that we may start talking a little bit more about trading up or trading back or staying pat, kind of see how it goes. This is funny because this year, just working through, because we do our own mock drafts, there's a lot of intrigue because it's hard to determine where some guys are going to go. And there's always a surprise or two that you have to throw in there too. So this is an interesting year.
You guys now share a city with the LA Rams. They've been making a lot of noise this offseason. How hard is it for you guys to just focus on yourselves, focus on the draft, and not have to go make a big splash because the team that you share a city with did?
Yeah, it's not too hard. It really isn't. I'm plenty busy, so you kind of hope everybody would just kind of judge you in the fall when you actually start playing games. But I know that's not as fun to do. So. But it's not difficult at all. We're pretty focused on what we're doing here.
Tom, can you elaborate a little bit more on what it's like when you guys do your mock drafts and you run these different scenarios? Do different guys take on different teams? Like, how do you guys kind of handle that?
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll have the scouts and coaches. We'll give a team or 2 teams to each guy, and they're responsible for knowing that team, knowing their needs, knowing what they've signed in the off season. And our pro scouts will help the guys with this, but. And then responsible for picking for that team. So, we'll go through that exercise tomorrow actually with the coaches and scouts. It's actually pretty fun to do, and it's also helpful. And I kind of like it when some things kind of go off the rails a little bit because it gives us some more things to think about and talk about. And I think the coaches and scouts enjoy doing it too.
Is that a lot of what this kind of last few days of the draft is? Is it more based on sort of scenarios and your evaluations?
Yeah, the evaluations are pretty much done. I know for me right now it's just a lot of scenarios and just talking through things first round, second round. A little harder in the third, obviously, but talking through things. If you take this position in the first round, where we look in the second round, where we look in the third round. And then the other part is trying to just identify some late round players, possible college free agents.
Speaking of late round, Tom, there's a couple kids out of the San Diego area, Luis Perez, Darren Carrington. Are you familiar with either of those guys? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I am. In these situations, it's hard to talk specifically about players. But from being in San Diego for 4 years, The caliber of high school football there is really, really good. And I was actually at a Stanford-Oregon game this year, and I'm looking down the roster, and there must have been, I'd say, 8 or 10 players from both teams from San Diego high schools, which is impressive. And some big-time players, too. Royce Freeman being one of them, too. So, yeah, the caliber of high school football is really good in San Diego. But, to talk specifically about those guys is a little hard for me to do.
One of them was his dad's a former.
Yeah, played here, yeah. But I've met him, and he's a great guy, and at least, they know the process.
Tom, is kick returner something that's on kind of your guys' list to try to address here? And is that realistically a position you can address in the draft?
You could. Yeah, you could address it in the draft with a position player or someone who just does returns, but you could do it with a running back, receiver, corner, safety, and then we'll see what we have in-house.
Is it a need for you guys?
We have a lot of needs. Yeah, sure. Obviously, you think it's a need, so if you think it's a need, sure. Yeah. No, I'd agree with you. Yeah.
Going into the draft, I know that you want best player, but if you look at it right now, today, for Thursday, do you think it's more heavy offense or defense of your needs?
Where the draft's more weighted, I actually probably think it's probably a little more defense, but, I don't know. We got 7 picks, so you're only picking 7 guys, but I'd probably say it's a little more weighted defense this year. But that's also one of those questions, if you ask another team, they may give you the exact opposite answer. But the way we have it, probably a little more defense.
Has there been any contact with Antonio Gates?
Recently, I don't think so, no.
Is there door still open for him to come back? Do you see a role for him on this team?
And it's been a kind of and I understand it's a big topic. I just don't have an update on it right now.
Tom, there's a guy with the Saints. He was on the radio this morning and talking about the risk of the first round, if it's going to work out for you or not. And he suggested there were 15 teams last year that wish they had another pick. Do you guys have that kind of thought or feeling?
First of all, there's risk in every round. There's risk in almost every decision we make, which makes it fun sometimes too. But there's no perfect players. We talk about that a lot with our scouts because we're all looking for the perfect guy, and it just doesn't exist. So you have to try and decide. Every player has a weakness. What are the weaknesses? Can we fix them? Can we coach them? Can we develop them? If we can't, are there other things he does well that compensate for it? So those are long discussions we have. But I'll tell you what, once we pick a player or sign a player, we're all in with that guy. And, we're all invested in him, and we're working with the player. So I don't look back. I know one thing we don't do. We don't look back and look at players that we didn't take. We worry about the guys we took. I know myself, I'm 100% confident in our scouts to identify players. I'm 100% confident in our coaches to develop those players, and that's the best way to go. And we've got a really good group of guys that can do that. So that's the goal for this year too.
Tom, you said a pretty good sized contingent to Baker Mayfield's pro day, and it kind of came out in a Sports Illustrated profile that maybe in the meeting that because of where you guys are in the draft, that maybe he didn't prepare for that meeting the same way as he would if you guys were picking 4th or 5th. Is that a fairly common thing for kind of guys that you meet with that are projected early, that maybe they don't go into those meetings as open-minded, or
right.
Were you surprised to read that or hear that?
I'm probably not prepared to comment on that. My plate's pretty full, so no offense, Dan.
When you're looking at the type of guys that you want to wear the Bolt, when you're looking at their character, how would you describe the characteristics you're looking for versus maybe deal-breaker scenarios?
Well, I know what we're looking for is competitive competition, love to play football. A lot of us look for the same things, but those are the 2 things that are the biggest things for us, and football intelligence. If you don't love to play and you don't love to work, you just won't get better at this level. And the talent level at this level is so high that a good college player, once they get here, if they don't continue to improve, they won't have the career that you're looking for. So you got to have that inner drive and desire. We talk about desire and work ethic all the time. You need to have those 2 things. If you have work ethic and desire, if you start with that, that's the core you're looking for, and you can kind of build around that. The deal breakers, there's a lot of deal breakers out there. We spent a lot of time discussing, because obviously talent comes into it. we're trying to win here, but we want to win with the right people. And I think when you have the right people, they can handle adversity. And when things get tough, a lot of times the guys that don't have the character that you want are the first guys to go south on you, and that you can't rely on. We need guys that we can rely on, and that's what we've tried to build here. It takes time. You're not going to be 100% right on players, but we want guys that can handle that adversity. Like, we had a lot of adversity last year, and some things that players had not had to experience before. And our guys just kept playing, and our head coach did a great job keeping them focused as well. But those are the type of guys that we need. Those are the guys that we're looking for. And, we need talent as well. We're not going to take a bunch of guys that are really hardworking and know football but can't play. But that's a big part of it. The intangibles are a really big part of this game.
There was a lot of talk that last year's offensive tackle class wasn't that great. Is this a better group this year? Is there depth at that position?
Again, I'm blanking out on last year's tackles, but this year it's pretty good. There's some depth there. I think the whole offensive line actually is pretty strong, not only at tackle but at guard and center.
Does the fact that you guys used multiple picks, 3 picks last year, offensive linemen, when you're thinking, does that factor into your board at all?
We have some guys that have some versatility here right now, so obviously you're going to factor in at different positions if you have young players already there. But offensive line-wise, I think there's some players in this draft that are versatile enough to play different spots. And I think we have some guys here that can play some different spots. I think you got to keep all your options open.
Any more? Good. All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks.